What is real? How do you define real?
Like everyone else, you were born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
The Fashion Matrix Podcast with Pablo Mentor.
Wake up and be free.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode here for the Fashion Matrix Podcast. This is your host, Pablo Mentor. Without any further ado, I want to talk about straight up. I want to just get into it. I want to start talking about what I want to talk about today, which is the diet conspiracy theory, if that makes sense. The vegan agenda and the bullshit food agenda behind the one world government and behind all these big ass fucking companies that, okay, if you're very, very new to this whole subject, first of all, you got to understand and become aware that most people around the world are unaware of their diet, right? Like literally, they don't even think about what they're putting into their mouth, into their system. It's just a matter of tradition. So they eat whatever they grow up in, right? Whatever their mom or dad gives them to eat as food, as sustenance. So, and I will talk about my experience, of course, but that was me. I was not aware of what I was eating. I was just, a kid. I was eating bullshit, eating candies, eating junk food, and I really never paid attention. And in my family, they never taught me about nutrition, about, hey, did you know that if you eat this, you'll have more energy, you'll have more focus? Or did you know that if you eat this, you'll actually create disease, inflammation, you'll be obese, or you'll have diabetes, you'll develop, I don't know, like bad habits, bad sleeping habits, and this and that, right? None of my teachers would actually talk about that. So it was not in the mainstream. Of course, so if you're new to this, you got to understand that. The first thing you got to do is pay attention, become a little bit more conscious and aware of what you're eating. Most people are either tired, obese, or just fat. They're not very comfortable with their own body because they're not paying attention to what they eat. What they eat doesn't give them the proper nutrition, so they are very tired, they cannot sleep, and of course they're full of stress. Now that's just the improper diet. Add to that all of the rest of the bullshit that we live in today, which is stress from jobs, from the recession that we're in, that money issues, family issues, relationship issues, radiation issues because of the cell phone. Overusing the phone is overstimulating your mind, and that creates stress. And stress is not an emotional thing. You gotta understand that stress is not an emotional thing. And also food, it can be emotional, and that's how they sell it to you, because they know that most of the decisions that we take are based on our emotions. But that's because you're simply unaware. So that's how they play you. That's how they manipulate you and control you, right? However, food is simply nutrition. Your body needs fuel, right? Now, because we're humans and we are having emotions and we have the capacity of creation, so we evolve. And instead of just eating food for fueling up, we create art out of it. And that's fantastic. But still, most people are just eating because, I'm nothing without my morning coffee. I need my coffee or I just can't wake up. I mean, come on. You're already selling yourself too short. You're literally telling me that you're nothing if you don't have a fucking brew, like a goddamn beverage. Come on. That's just fucking stupid. The fact that you depend on an external substance for you to feel complete, that alone tells me that you have no control over your mindset, over your emotions. And I mean, you're just a dumbass, literally. I mean, something outside of you cannot and should not control you. So that's the first thing. Understand that most of the diseases that we see in today's world, most of the things that people complain about, is due to the lack of a proper diet, a balanced diet, and the right nutrition into your system, into the system of human beings. The next thing that I want to talk about, of course, is why? Why is this happening? How come nobody talks about this, or the few that actually talk about it, they're labeled as conspiracy theorists or super healthy fitness people, and I just don't have the time to go to the gym and eat proper food, or it's too expensive. And even that, I don't think it's that expensive, because it's a matter of personal choice, right? What is more expensive? A disease later on, like cancer, which is super expensive to treat that shit, right? Or to actually invest in the proper nutrition that it's not that expensive. But I'll talk about that in a moment. So there's a reason why all these things are not in the mainstream media, right? Give you an example. In Mexico, I think it's the kids are the number 2 or number 3 country in the world with the most obese infants in the world. I mean, come on. And they have diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Like, what the fuck? How stupid can you be? How much bullshit and shit can you give a child to actually develop a kid developing diabetes? Come on, man. Why is this happening? Well, if you pay attention to the food industry, you'll see that it's very lucrative, right? Not only because of the restaurants and all that, but the brands like Cheetos, Cheerios, and all these things, like the little fucking cupcakes and all this shit. There's a lot of money in that, and there's a lot of advertising being paid and being invested into those brands, because they know that that's how they control you, because people want to eat that because it's comfort and it makes them feel good on an instant, even though it might be something not beneficial to your diet, to your health. But in the moment, because you're so stressed about everything else, well, I just want to feel good. So then you give in and you drink that shit. The mocha, super chino, extra crispy, fat, bacon, latte, whatever, right? All these new fucking things that they come up with, all these new names for fucking coffee. So the demand for this shit is actually very high, and brands know about this. Take Coca-Cola, for example. We know that the ingredients used in that beverage is horrible, and it's like taking 20 full tablespoons of sugar, of refined sugar. We know, any doctor will tell you that it's horrible. You're killing yourself by drinking that. And yet Coca-Cola is still selling like a motherfucker. How does that even make sense? Well, again, it's the media, isn't it? And it's the advertising industry, and it's just how the society is being played out. It sounds corny, and probably you've heard it before, not only on this podcast, but on memes and everywhere in the world, that the pharmaceutical industries and the food industries are like one and the same. Just look at Monsanto, right? Which is one of the largest food companies, or owner of companies of food industry, right? Then they use chemicals, and they spray. I mean, it's basically GMO, right? All this shit that is now kind of a little bit on the mainstream now, the non-GMO food, all this and that, and I'll get that in a moment, of course too. But Monsanto is still huge, and it genetically modifies food and crops because of the demand. I mean, I also get it. It's the demand. They people gotta eat, so they cut expenses and time frames so that the product can be actually done. Bread, refined food, right? Refined wheat, all this shit, gluten, for example, all that, man, it's just creating a lot of disease. So with the bullshit diet that we have, not only in America, but in Mexico, but I think around the world. And of course it varies, but mostly you'll see that there's not a right, or it's not the first thing, the first choice that people do to eat an apple, for example. It's a matter of a lifestyle. And what I've seen from all the different parts and the different countries that I've lived on and I've traveled is that people have a tendency to just eat something because it tastes good, not because it's nutritious, not because it's good for my health. And then on the other hand, when you start creating disease, then you have the pharmaceutical industry. So they give you the disease with one hand, and with the other one, they treat the disease because they do not cure it. They never cure it, because a patient cure is a customer lost, right? So I think most people don't even think about it like that. Like, come on, you're just a conspiracy theorist. You're crazy. You're no. It's just food. It has nothing to do with my cancer. Yes, it does. Yes, of course it does. Yes, it absolutely fucking does. That what you eat becomes who you are. Okay, I don't know if you know about this, but we are like 10% of us. It's just really how we identify ourselves as being us. Like, only 10% is Pablo, right? Only 10% of me is Pablo. The rest is just microbes and bacteria. So there are literally more microbes and bacteria living inside of your body than actual cells, than actual human body cells. Go figure, right? So there's a whole system, a whole microbiome. It's actually the name of it, living inside of you, and it's this little living things that live inside of you, you know, like bacteria, that they feed on this nutritious food or bullshit. And depending on what you feed them, it'll create either health and more energy and more focus and a better self, a better skin, more intelligence, even more capacity to do other things, or it'll create disease. The most common one with the diet that we have right now, which is flour and bread and pizza and all these processed meats and all this shit, it's inflammation. And inflammation basically equals disease, right? And you sustain that inflammation over a long period of time, and it develops into something horrible. Now, the body is a wonderful machine. Now, everything that I'm saying, I have to say it. This is a disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. This is just my opinion. This is just what I've read, what I've talked about with certain nutritionists, with certain doctors that actually care about people, because most of them, they don't know about this either. And also based on my own experience, okay? In no way, shape, or form I'm trying to convince you or trying to say that this is a professional opinion, because I have no fucking idea what I'm talking about, right? That being said, the body is a wonderful machine. It's like a really amazing, a very amazing machine that it can cure itself. And no matter how much bullshit you give it, if you start, I mean, what I'm trying to say is, it doesn't matter if you've been eating bullshit for 10 years, 20 years. If you start, then you can actually repair yourself. You can repair your body. You can repair your microbiome, which is, I mean, I'm not gonna get too deep into it, but it's like the good bacteria living inside of you versus the bad bacteria. So basically, what you want to do with the food that you take is you want to feed the good bacteria, and you don't want to feed it. You don't want to feed the bad bacteria, because then you'll create disease, right? I mean, this is, of course, in my own understanding. Any doctor, any nutritionist would slap me in the face with my oversimplified explanation. So I believe that there's an agenda. There's like a dark agenda when people they're easier to manipulate. They're easier to tell them what to do when they have a disease. When you tell them, I'm going to give you the cure, but you need to vote for this president. I'm going to give you the cure, but you need to do this. You know what I'm saying? So when you keep them controlled, you control them by a number of different things, But mostly what I want to talk about today is the food, is the diet, the industries, the food industries. God damn. Even for example, when there was the pandemic, when the lockdown was in place, how in the fuck can you explain that McDonald's was open, yet the farmers market would have to be closed, would actually remain closed? So people that have their own farms and they would want to sell fruits and vegetables and things that actually they grow by themselves, that was non-essential, right? That was considered to be non-essential. And yet you would see Walmarts, you would see McDonald's, and all this bullshit, Pizza Hut, Domino's, all that shit. It doesn't make any fucking sense, man. When you're eating and you're feeding to the people junk food, and the real food, you either keep it in quotes secret, like the benefits of it. Because if people would understand this, if the media would talk more about this, people would be like, man, why am I choosing poison over good things? And healthy does not equal bad food, right? Like untasty food. Because I think that's the other part. The media and the advertising and all this shit, the food industry has made it to believe that if you eat healthy, it's boring, it's not tasty, it's shitty, basically. You know, you'll eat your salad and it's just horrible. Yet you see this juicy burger and these crispy fries, man, that's tasty. I mean, come on, man. Now, it's all a matter of balance. And I want to talk about also my own experience. For a period of time, and actually a long period of time, maybe like 5 years, I wanted to become a chef. And that's what I was supposed to do. So I didn't go to proper school, like I didn't get a degree, but I did went to certain schools to get like diplomas, and I started my education. And I started learning about foods. I started learning about the chemistry about food and when you cook it and how to, you know, the different techniques when you grab the knife, this, that. And then I went to Europe, and that's when I fell in love with food because of the Michelin star restaurants and this and that. I came back to Mexico and I started working in a restaurant. I started working in restaurants. First, I started like anybody else, as a dishwasher, then as a waiter, and then eventually I ended up in the kitchen. And I gotta say, I loved it. I learned a lot from it, and because I wanted to be a chef, I would eat everything, literally just everything that would come in front of my face. I would eat it because I wanted to expand my taste buds. I wanted to try different things. But I'm not going to talk about what happened to my chef career and all that. Maybe in another episode. I started developing a disease, like symptoms in my gut, and now I know what it was. But I started feeling terrible. I had no energy. I couldn't sleep. I always had like acidic body, you know, like I don't know how to say it in English, but like heartburn. I felt terrible. I felt very bad all the time, and no matter what I ate, the moment I ate something, boom, I started feeling bad, and I started feeling, you know, instead of up and energetic, the moment I ate something, I felt sleepy. Immediately, I felt like I needed to sleep. Like, oh man, I just ate and now I gotta go to sleep. Which I think it's normalized, but that's not normal. If you eat the right food, the right fuel, it's actually that. It's fuel. It should not bloat you. It should not make you feel tired. It's the opposite. You know, you feel energetic. You feel the same as when you wake up in the morning, right? When you're lean and you look better. Well, with the right food, it's the same. You feel, what's the word? Like lighter, you know, and more energetic. I couldn't figure out what's wrong with me, and I wasn't necessarily fat. I didn't have any overweight because I went to the gym, but I was not conscious of the food that I was eating. I was just eating a lot of meat, eating a lot of bullshit, and I was not even paying attention to where the products came from, which is another huge part. Most people don't know where their food comes from. They're eating if that makes sense, dead food. Not alive. They don't know what it comes from. Food is electricity as well, and we have electricity within us. I don't want to talk too much about it. That's some deeper stuff. But even the water, for example, you think that just drinking any water is gonna hydrate you, and wrong. That's actually not what happens. You need to intake minerals. Spring water is the best. Tap water is bullshit because it's full of fluoride and it's dead. It's not electric, so you gotta be careful with it when it comes to that. So what happened is that I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I had inflammation, and I went to the doctor. I went to actually 3 doctors or 4 doctors, and I tell them, man, I don't know if I started thinking that I had cancer or something. I was like, man, there's got to be something wrong, like really wrong with me, because I feel like shit. And then that's when I started realizing I have a friend that he's been vegan for a long time, or plant-based for a long time. And he told me, well, why don't you give it a try to this diet, and just give it 1 week and see what happens. And all of a sudden, boom, I did it, because that's how I am. At first I was like, man, fuck this shit. It's this diet. I hate dieting. I've never dieted because I think it's bullshit. I think you can eat anything as long as you know what you're eating and you keep a proper balance. So I said, no, fuck you. This is for pussy, blah, blah, blah. But then I said, well, you know what? I'll give it a try. For at least 1 week, I'll give it a try. Let's see what happens. And to my surprise, I was, in quotes, cured. I was fucking cured. I felt amazing. All my problems disappeared when it comes to my diet, to my belly, to my gut. I didn't feel tired. I could sleep better. I was more flexible. I could do more of my workouts. I had more energy, and all the inflammation went away, and all of the symptoms that I had just went away. I said, okay, I'm onto something. All right. And even when I started my vegan diet, I really didn't pay attention to what I was eating. I just stopped eating animals. That's it. Any animal product. But I wasn't paying attention to what I was eating. I was eating a lot of soy. I was eating a lot of gluten and wheat, but I just didn't pay attention. But that alone helped me. It worked for me as a detox, right? Because that's the first thing you gotta do to your body. You gotta detox your body. Then I started realizing that most of these things that vegan people eat, I started seeing a lot of fat vegans. I'm like, okay, so just because you're vegan does not mean that you're healthy. There's a lot of bullshit industries in around the vegan shit, right? I started digging in deeper. I started realizing that, for example, soy is terrible for the body, and even for the environment. It's terrible. It's horrible. It should not be consumed by humans. It's a bullshit crop. I urge you to do your research to the history of soy, how it was introduced in China. And so I started realizing that, soy gives you man boobs, for example. It imbalances your hormones, and it decreases the testosterone levels. Then I realized that companies such as Beyond Meat, for example, what they put in, I started reading the ingredients, which is what most people don't do. They don't read the ingredients, and when they read it, they don't fully research what's a natural ingredient, because sometimes you'll see it in ingredients. Natural ingredients. Well, what the fuck is that? What do you mean by natural ingredients? Tell me specifically what I'm putting into my system. So then I started really soon, like a year and a half, I started realizing that the vegan is also pretty much bullshit. And that most people that claim to be vegan are unhealthy because they don't know what they're doing. They're not really paying attention to their nutrition. They're just saying because it's almost like a social status, right? Like, oh, I'm vegan. I'm better than you. Look at me. Oh, I care so much about the planet. And it's bullshit, right? It's just more division. And then if you see it right now, people like Bill Gates, for example, you cannot tell me that guy cares about you. That motherfucker is invested in a lot of vegan companies, Beyond Meat being one of them. And when something begins to start to become mainstream and everyone wants to be about it and everyone wants to talk about it, almost immediately I rejected, right? So I'm like, man, I started seeing the trend. There was a trend of becoming vegan. I said, no, this is bullshit. There's something shady behind this. And I think it's because they want to keep us unhealthy as well with a improper nutrition. Now, don't get me wrong. Eating a lot of that bullshit meat is also pretty bad. It creates all the different bullshit diseases in your body, and it creates a lot of problems on the environment as well. When people don't know that, for example, the chicken that you eat, most of those chickens and the eggs that you eat, they're full of shit. Like literally, the poor chickens live in horrendous, terrible conditions, and the cows as well, and the pigs as well. And they cannot move. And they're stuck there all day, all night, and they piss and they shit on themselves, and then they inject them with hormones to make them look bigger and juicier, and it's just, man, and that's what you're eating. It's fucking horrible. It's disgusting. So I'm not saying that one is better than the other one. I'm talking about my own experience. So then I went and I started realizing that the vegan diet is not the way. So then I started realizing that there's something else called like the plant-based or the alkaline diet. And I started digging in deeper into what my ancestors used to eat, like the Aztecs and all that. I started realizing they ate fish, a lot of fish. And now, I mean, back in the day, it wasn't polluted, full of uranium like today, right? Full of mercury, full of microplastics and all that shit. And they ate a lot of fish. They didn't eat meat, or not a lot of meat, maybe some deer sometimes, but their main food, it was corn, and it was, of course, but the real good corn, non-GMO shit, right? And a lot of vegetables and fruits, tons of fruits. So I started realizing, okay, so I mean, they were badasses, right? They were very intelligent. They were some of the strongest warriors in the world. So okay, I gotta understand that. And I saw that with all these documentaries, I mean, I think everyone has their own agenda, and they're just trying to sell you some shit, and they're trying to persuade you into thinking that this is better than the other one. And no. I started realizing in my own body. I started feeling it with my own body. So I started gaining weight being vegan. And I said, okay, no, this is bullshit, man. So then I started eating just pure raw food, right? Like the raw diet, if you want to give it a name. I was just eating a lot of fruits and a lot of vegetables. And I wouldn't even cook them that much, but I would still cook them, but not that much. And that helped me a lot. And it was right about the period when I started digging in deeper into my spirituality, my spiritual journey. So you know that if you get too deep into that, you know that the less you eat, the easier it is for you to meditate, because food takes a lot of the energy, and if you can control that, you don't actually need a lot of food. And I wasn't really being active. I was just meditating. I was going to the forest. I was not being very active with my body. So I didn't require a lot of food. I was just eating one time a day, maybe twice, and very, very little food, like pure only. Sometimes I would only eat fruits, and I felt phenomenal. I felt great for another period of like 2 years or a year and a half. Then I realized, okay, so I started going to box. I started boxing, and I felt I felt pretty fucking tired. So I said, no, I gotta take more proteins, but I want to eat meat. So how can I do? So I played a lot. And then whenever, I never was very strict, because I felt like it was just an agenda for these fucking companies. So then I started realizing, okay, so if I went to a house and they gave me some meat, I would eat it, but I felt like shit. I actually vomited sometimes because I felt horrible. So then I started realizing, okay, if for purposes of survival, I gotta be able to eat this shit. Otherwise, it's gonna be hard for me to survive. I started growing my own food. I live in an apartment. I have a small balcony, and you don't need a lot, right? You just need some sun, some water, some soil, and you can start growing your own shit. So I started growing my own shit, and I started realizing that if you go to people that, if you know the farmer, if you know the grower, it not only tastes better, but your body feels better. I started getting into herbalism. I knew that most of the herbs contain all the minerals that you need, all the iron that you need. And then I started realizing that there are certain companies, and there are certain, well, not companies, but certain farmers and certain growers that actually do care about their products. So, like free grass-fed cows and all this shit. And I wanted to give it a try to see what happened in my body. I ate it. I didn't feel bad. I didn't vomit it. So I'm like, okay, cool. So this is a better thing, right? If I want to eat it from time to time. But I was still like, okay, no, I'm plant-based and alkaline, all this shit. So then I started doing calisthenics, and I realized that, I started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and my body just aching all the time. And one day, my wife, she's never been vegan. She just eats everything, but in a balanced way and with more consciousness. That's basically what it is. If you just become more conscious about the food that you take, even when you take bullshit food like junk food, you must be conscious that you're taking some poison into your system, and that you'll have to be able to do some detox. I started juicing a lot, the liquid sunshine, a lot of green juice every single day. I started on superfoods as well with Darian Olien. I read his fucking book, and I got really deep into the superfoods, and that, I think that eliminated everything. Everything. I mean, I felt amazing, and I've never stopped taking my superfoods and the minerals and the pro and prebiotics that, just become more aware of what your body needs. And each body is different. Simply because this diet worked for someone else does not mean it's going to work for you. So I started improvising and experimenting onto myself. So when I had a lot of soreness in my body because it's growing, getting bigger, I said, you know what, I'm going to give it a try. I want to eat some meat. And to my surprise, I felt better. I recuperated quicker. And I said, God damn, I hate it to admit it. And this is the first time that I'm admitting it on a podcast or, publicly. But I felt better. So now I'm like, okay, so I'm onto something. And if you pay attention to these diets, I think there's a whole dark agenda, on one side or the other. And I think the best way to take care of your body is to, first of all, pay attention to your own body, right? Pay attention to how it feels. Pay attention to the stool. When you go to the fucking toilet, pay attention to your shit. And that will tell you a lot of how much nutrition you're taking or not. And I've met people that claim to be super healthy, and they're alkaline, and they're pretty much hardcore when it comes to their diet. And they don't eat anything that is not alkaline. They don't eat anything that is not plant-based, this, that, and they look like shit. And they're actually not healthy at all. And I realized that sometimes these people, the brain and the cells starts eating themselves when you don't have certain proteins and certain substances in your body. So I said, man, wow, that's why there's a whole career behind this, the nutritionists. And I don't claim to be one, but in my own experience, I've always tried different things. Now I consider myself as being healthy. I haven't been sick in a long time, for over 3 years. I pay extra attention to anything and everything that I put into my body, and I know how it feels immediately. Now I'm more aware. My body immediately tells me this is good, this is bad, right? So I think it's just a matter of being more aware and go back to the soil. Learn where your food is coming from. Don't go to fucking these big ass chains like Walmart and all this bullshit Target. You gotta know the farmer. You gotta know the person that owns the cows. Where do they come from? How they are being fed? How they are being treated? Where does this papaya come from? Where does this fucking pineapple come from? Where does this corn come from? How was it made, right? And I think that is the first step into taking care of your nutrition. And I'm not here telling you that you should be vegan, you should be carnivore, do you, basically. Do you, but pay attention, be conscious of what you're of your body and what you're putting inside of your body. And then the next thing is also control your impulses, control your cravings. Otherwise you become a slave to these companies like, oh, I need Coca-Cola, oh, I need a coffee. No, become aware of the cravings. Your body does not need any of that sugar bullshit. Sugar is the number one drug in the world. That's right. It's more addictive than cocaine. It's horrible, man. Sugar, it's just bullshit. Refined sugar. Now, there are other types of sugar that are not bad, but everyone tells you, no, sugar is bad. No, not necessarily. Meat is bad. Not necessarily. But you got to pay attention first and foremost to yourself, to your body. Then control. You can do fasting. You can go without any food for 3 days and nothing will happen to you. Actually, this is very good for you to reset your cells and your body, right? Don't fall prey to this bullshit. Oh no, I gotta eat every day, all time. Morning, in the afternoon, I gotta eat my breakfast. No, sometimes you can go without a breakfast. You can do intermittent, I don't know how to say it. Like the intermittent fast, if I said it correctly. You know what I'm talking about. You can go without any food for an entire day. Pay attention to the water that you drink. Pay attention to the brands that you're buying. Read the ingredients. If there's something that you cannot pronounce or there's something that you don't know what it is, immediately Google it. And if you don't know what it is, then you'll realize, pretty soon you'll realize that you're being fed poison and bullshit. And then the last thing, pay attention to your environment as well, because there are things that just because you like it, just because it's good for you, does not necessarily mean that it's good for the rest of the world and the rest of the people, because we live, as a society, we live in a world that we all depend on each other. The world needs us, we need the world, so we got to give it back. So you got to pay attention to what crops you're eating. If you're eating meat, then pay attention. Don't eat a lot of meat every day. Red meat, right? Because it's bad for the environment. Just pay attention, right? Be more aware of what you consume, and I guarantee you, your life will be better. Your relationships will be better, and of course, the world will be better as well. Or at least that's what we're aiming for. So this is my 2 cents on this subject of the diet paradigm, the diet dark agenda, because man, everyone is just full of shit. They'd rather have a chicken fillet than have an apple. They don't know growers. Take your kids. For example, if you have a kid, you're a parent, take your kids to the farm. Make them understand how the soil works. Eat mushrooms, eat your greens, and pay attention. Pay attention. Even the grains and gluten is not bad. The problem is that they add gluten to bullshit food, to these processed bread companies and all that, and it just creates a leaky gut syndrome. This is what I had. I told you that I was going to tell you like the disease that I had, where I went to the doctors and they couldn't understand what was wrong with me. I had a leaky gut, which I'm not going to explain it. Just do your own research. Gluten is not bad. That's what I was saying. There's something like kamut bread, which is way better. Bread is not bad. Bread was for a long time the sustenance for families, but it's just the overconsumption, because people, they want more and more and more and quicker and quicker and quicker. Just pay attention. Slow down. Stop eating so much bullshit, and when you are about to eat, give thanks to the food. Be fully aware of what you're taking into, that it's nutrition. You're nurturing your body instead of just eating and not thinking about it and then smoking a cigarette. All right. So that's what I wanted to share. That's what I wanted to talk about. Be the best version of yourself. Take care of your body. Take care of your diet, because that also has to do with your image, right? Your image literally it's a compilation of many different things, of your mindset, of your body, your body image. For example, all this new shit, that body positivity. Well, motherfucker, being fat is not it's never going to be a good thing if you're unhealthy, if you have diabetes, if you're not paying attention to what you're eating. All right, so share this episode with someone that would benefit hearing this talk. Send me your questions. Follow me at Pablo Mentor on social media. And yeah, just share these things. This needs to be heard by everyone else, right? Until the next one, this has been the Fashion Matrix Podcast.